Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another live stream here on Free Will Photos. Man, today is going to be one of those days where we talk a little bit of housekeeping, but I promise you it is an important aspect of being a photographer, regardless of if you are professional or if you are an amateur. It doesn't really matter because you need to be able to find your photos. If you can't find them, then you can't edit them, especially if you took them years ago. All right. Now, I do have some housekeeping notes that I kind of need to share. So because these are live streams, the replay, if you're watching this on the replay, you may need to change your stream settings or your view settings. You can do that by going to the bottom of the YouTube player and clicking the little gear icon and then selecting 1080p, because that is what I'm streaming at. So hopefully if you're getting that pixelated looking screen or weird looking screen, that'll solve that problem. The other thing, excuse me for one second. The other thing that I would say is if you haven't already picked up ON1 Photo Raw 2024, then you can do so by going over to the website. There's a link in the description box below, but you can also just go to on1.com, click view products, and purchase it from there. If you want to save some money when you go to checkout, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. I make a small commission. It helps this channel continue to grow, but that's at no extra cost to you. So it's a win-win for everyone involved. Now, with that being said, let me jump into the computer really quickly. So the other housekeeping note that I kind of wanted to address in today's stream, because I know that this has been a challenge, is if you are using the mask. So let me go to local adjustments really quickly, and I'm going to grab my masking tool. Some people have been asking me, how am I getting this bar to stay at the top of the screen? Well, the answer to that is if you go to view and then you come all the way down to the bottom where it says auto hide tool option bar. If you click that, for me, that's going to set it back to the default, which many people are already on. And I know that some people just don't like this idea, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to get back to kind of the more traditional ON1 style, or even if you're just like, I don't want that to disappear on me, if you're brand new to ON1 Photo Raw 2024, that's perfectly fine. You can click view and then just uncheck this auto hide, and that's going to give you your options bar at the top of your screen. It's going to stay there forever. Hopefully that was value added. So I do have a checklist to make sure that I stay on topic. So I'm just checking off on each of the items. All right. So let's go ahead and jump back into browse. I'm just going to come down here. Actually, I'll just click it up here. Doesn't matter because we're not really editing photos today. That's not what I'm going to do. I want to help show you how you can navigate to your images inside of ON1. And one of the things that has caught some scrutiny from the user experience aspect, and fairly so, right? I'm not trying to take on one side here. What I'm trying to do by the content that I release is just showing you how to navigate it. So if you get frustrated or stuck in a certain point, you can say, okay, let me go see what did Chris say about doing X, Y, Z. Oh, this is how to do it in the 2024 version. And yes, these videos are mostly catered towards the legacy users right this second. But if you are new to ON1, all of this is still going to be value added to you, because you're going to see where these tools are, especially if you're coming from another program like Lightroom, Luminar, Capture One, whatever it may be. Think of what it is that you like to do, and there's probably a way of doing it inside of ON1. It just may look a little bit different. So with all that out of the way, first thing that I want to mention about the search feature is the fact that you may want to consider cataloging your folders. Now, on today's live stream, I'm going to show you this without the files being cataloged. And my photos are on a really, really fast external SSD, so I don't have too much of a lag, but it gets a lot faster searching for your files when you have the folders cataloged. And if you're like, Chris, what are you talking about? I have no idea what a cataloged folder is. Well, what you want to do is go to your local drive, and I catalog my main folder where I subcategorize all of my photo shoots or my types of shoots, whatever it may be. And that's going to be my personal work folder. So if I right click on this in the local drive, I'm still in the browse menu here. If I right click on it, halfway down the menu, there's going to be the Make Catalog Folder menu. So if I click that, I get this dialog box. And my recommendation, if you are just brand new to catalog files or catalog folders, just go with the basic settings here. You're going to be perfectly fine. You can come back and modify these later. But if you are looking to go a little bit more in depth, then you may want to look at changing this from embedded, which that's the embedded JPEG for a RAW file. And then if you only shoot JPEG, then you're just going to have a JPEG. That's perfectly fine. But these are the size of the thumbnails that show up back here and the accuracy of what that thumbnail represents for the photo. It's not really that big of a deal when you're in the browse feature. But if you do plan to do culling based off of the browse window, then I would recommend at least bumping it up to medium because that's going to give you a pretty good representation. The trade-off here is the more or the higher you go up in the standard, the more disk space and processing power it's going to take for your computer. So my recommendation, if you are on the minimal spec computer, I recommend you stay on embedded. All right, that's just my recommendation. You play with it however you so choose. And then we got the scan frequency. This is how often ON1 is looking through those cataloged folders and trying to figure out keyword AI information, trying to figure out resolution issues, all kinds of stuff, right? I would be lying if I told you everything that I knew catalog folders was doing. I'll do some research and maybe do a video on that. If you're interested, let me know in the comment section below. But once per launch, I think is perfectly fine. And I think that that's very respectful for people who have a computer that may not have the capability. What you may want to consider is keyword AI. And this is the reason why I'm showing you this today, because when it comes to finding your images, keyword AI is a powerful tool for finding the things that you're looking for in your images, as well as the things that you have tagged your images. So I highly recommend that you at least make a decision on this. Now, if you leave it at basic, I think you're going to be perfectly fine. And what I failed to mention, if you just hover over each of these items, you get a little description down at the bottom that tells you what it's doing. So if you're like, Chris, I can't follow along with you, or I forgot what you said, just hover over each one of these items and you'll see that description down at the bottom. But with the keyword AI, you have three options. You have off, basic, and then honor preferences. Now, for me, if I click on preferences and I come over to keyword AI, then I just checked everything. I'm experimenting with it, seeing what works the best. I haven't fully figured that out yet, but I do know that I want to write my keywords to an XMP file because I jump between multiple programs. And this is actually really important for me if I need to import a file into Lightroom and I want the keywords that keyword AI has already generated, or if I'm in Photo Lab, all of the keywords that pop up there. All the keywords that come from Keyword AI will pop up there. I don't want to make this about Keyword AI, but that is important for me to find my photos years down the line, because the way that I keyword my particular images, but also the AI options that are being used, which come with some more, I guess, layman's terms to identify. So hopefully that makes sense and is not too much of an earful. I'm just going to hit OK. And again, I'm not going to work off of the cataloged file because I want to show you how fast it can be. With that being said, I got a caveat. I'm using an SSD. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel. Take a pause here. I see a comment. Do you possibly know? Let me put it up. Do you possibly know how much space does cataloging folder needs? For example, 1,000 photos and keywords AI only with them. Yeah, so that's a great question. And to the point that I was making earlier, it depends based off of if these are raw files. And did you already say that? No, I don't think. So if they're raw files and you're doing the maximum capability, right? So if I come back over here and I go with the standard size, that's going to take up more space on the hard drive than an embedded version. So it really, and we're also talking different size of images. So if you have a 10 megapixel camera, you're going to need less space than someone who has a 45 or a 60 megapixel camera. And so, I can't really tell you how much it would take for 1,000 images. Just, kind of figure out how much does it already take to store the images. And you could do an experiment, right? You can put 10 photos into an album, into a folder, and then catalog that folder, and then go find that folder and see how much space it actually takes up for the catalog cache. That would be your best bet at figuring it out, assuming that all of your images are shot with the same camera, so the resolution and the file sizes will still be the same. And that also goes up if you start using Resize AI, and then you get larger files, and it could also go down if you make smaller files. So there's so many variables when it comes to the cataloging storage question. So I do hope that helps. And I see you said that now you have, and it's Paul, I believe it's Paul, you got a 24 megapixel camera and they're raw images. So yeah, my recommendation is to go and test it out on your files that you have. So that way you can figure out how much space you do need. Do it with, just a select group of photos, and then you'll be able to figure that out. Now, the good news is you do not have to catalog the way that I do. I just happen to have a lot of storage devices or storage capability. So for my entire library, which is over 150,000 images in my personal work folder, and that just keeps going up and up and up, I have the storage capable of creating a catalog at the personal work or the root folder level. And if I right click on that, if I set that up, I just use the embedded, because I'm really not using it for the aspect of culling through my images. I'm using it for the keyword AI search and scan. And that's the main reason. So I don't need the larger file size. Okay. And I'm just looking at the comment here from Paul. I did not know the data is saved in the same folder. I thought it is saved somewhere on the C drive. So where the data is saved, and I wasn't completely clear on that. Where the data is saved is actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's in your cache location. So if you come over to files, or maybe it's not in files, maybe it is in system, and then wherever, so the catalog CPU usage is here, and then your browse cache, I'm pretty confident this is where it's saved. I'll have to check the user manual to verify that, but I'm pretty confident wherever you have your browse cache located, that's where that's saving. So you can change this if you want. You can click on move. I leave mine on my hard drive, but I believe that this is where it's actually storing. So please don't quote me on that just yet, but I'll do some research and figure that out. Okay, so searching for your photos. Now that I have kind of talked about cataloging and the benefit, hopefully makes sense of why you would want to catalog your files. Now let's talk about searching for the files. So again, I got my checklist here just to make sure that I go through everything. So the first thing that I want to do is show you the layout. And up at the top of the menu, or the browse bar here, so to speak, I have this search, which you would think that this is where search is, but this entire bar is actually dedicated to narrowing down your search fields and things of that sort. If you click the drop down here, you have a few options. You can go with current photos. You can also select some of the other locations. This will come into play here a little bit later, but think of this as your search criteria field. Where do you want ON1 to start looking for files? All right. Then you have some of your discriminators, which are extremely important. The first one's going to be text. Second one is attribute, faces, and metadata. I'll show you these in action here in a little while. Then we have a few options. We have some sort options here. We also have a smart album, which I will showcase after we get through some of the other items. And then we have smart organize, which this is actually a pretty cool tool. I don't use it as frequently as I probably ought to, but it is a pretty cool tool. And then we have some presets here, or some styles, where if you want to search for a particular set of images, it's going to save all of the information over here to the left, as well as some of the other info that we put into it. And you can just easily search. So I personally like to look at my 5-star Nikon images. I created a style earlier, and so if I click that, ON1, and by the way, this is me not on a cataloged folder, and I'm searching through images, so it literally went that fast to search for the images. So when you hear people talking about how fast ON1 is really moving, the software does move fast, but I want to make it very clear. I am using a fast SSD. I think it's the SanDisk Extreme Pro or something like that. It's the SanDisk Extreme. I'll put a link to it on Amazon, so if you want to pick that up, or at least know which one I'm talking about, you can do that. That being said, I do have, it did go that fast, right? So this is what a normal search would look like. I have attributes and metadata that I use to kind of filter down, with the first one being the attributes. I wanted to find 5-star images. It found my 5-star images, and then I filtered it by the camera make, and then I put contains, and I just type in Nikon. So any 5-star image that I've ever shot with a Nikon camera, I have the ability to save in a search, and I can find those photos, and I'm good to go. All right. Now, how did I build this? Let's go back to that. So what I'm going to do is hit none, and then this is going to close out everything. And just to make sure that nothing pops up, I'm going to hit none over there. There is kind of a quirk with ON1 2024 that if you leave the search over here, whenever you click one of these things, it's going to pop up that information. I personally don't like that. All right. So the first thing that I wanted to show, and one last thing, sorry, forgot to mention this. So you will have to jump around the screen a little bit, and this is where the search menu does kind of rub people the wrong way, it would be nice to have this number, because this is telling me I have 65 images, and it's at the very bottom of the page. So I have to do all the work up here, but then I have to look down here to see how many photos popped up. And again, I understand why that rubs people the wrong way. I'm not here to defend ON1 for this. I'm just here to say, if you're looking for the quantity of images that are inside of your filter, then you got to go down to the bottom of the page, so that way you know where it's at. That's all I'm trying to say here. All right, so let's put this back to none. And as you can see, when I put it to none, it leaves all of these attributes. But I want to reset this and make sure that we get everything going. And it's thinking right now. So we'll let ON1 kind of think itself through. And while it does that, I'm going to clear my throat. All right, and it looks like I answered Paul's question, so awesome. All right, and we'll close that. I'll just close metadata and attribute. All right, very good. So how do you start a search inside of ON1? Well, the first thing that I would always recommend doing is starting inside of metadata. You could use text if you want to, and this is actually really helpful. Like if I want to find airplane, I can type in the word airplane, and what's going to end up happening is it's using the keywords to kind of go and find airplane or photos of airplanes. And I have some photos of airplanes. So, you can see it does pretty decent. Here's an air show that I photographed a few years back when I was still shooting with Nikon. And then there's this thing that kind of looks like an airplane. It's not an airplane. So, it's searching through your images and trying to figure out like, okay, where are airplanes? Now with this image, it's a photo of my family and I in our living room, and there's no airplane in that image. So, it's not perfect, but it gets you pretty close, and, you got to kind of work through that. That's the way that I've seen ON1 kind of showcase the search feature. I find this to be fairly inconsistent. It may be helpful if you're already inside of a folder with all of your airplanes, and then you want to look for a specific color of airplane, because right now I'm searching my entire personal work folder. But if I was to search current photos, it's going to come up with nothing, because the folder that I'm in right now is actually from a lake, and there was no planes there. So this type of search is not my favorite, because it just doesn't yield consistent results. So I'm going to close the text box and open up metadata. Now, metadata, in my opinion, is probably one of the best ways of searching for your images. And excuse me. Okay, my allergies are acting up, so sorry, I gotta continuously pause and clear my throat. Let me just reset that. All right, so metadata is probably one of the best ways to start your search. And the reason is you get this drop down, and then you can go and find whatever you need to. So if I'm looking for a particular file type in this folder, because I have RAW and I have JPEG images, but let's say I only want the RAW images. I go file type is, so it's telling me that all of the following rules have to be true, which means the file type is RAW. That's what it's going to show here. All right. Now, if I wanted to add another delineator or another discriminator, I can hit the plus icon over here to the right, and that's going to give me another line. And then I can say, let's see, edit it, and then I can select the word edited, right? Or I could select different types of edits that may already have happened to the photo. So if I click that, edited is true. So that means there's only one file inside of this particular folder that meets this criteria. Now, let's say I want to find edited photos across my entire personal photos library. I can search personal work down here, which this Truth in Lending is actually what's the word I'm looking for? This is actually a catalog folder, but it's on a different hard drive. So this is on a slower hard drive. So I'm going to click it, but that's not where I was working from previously, if that makes any sense. I have my files backed up on two separate hard drives. I have the drive that I work off of, and then I have another folder labeled the exact same way, so things will actually transfer over there at 1 o'clock in the morning. I have it set up through Backblaze and all that good stuff. Just personal preference there. With that being said, here's my personal work folder. These are all of my raw images that are also edited. And you can see down at the bottom, I have 14,025 images that are raw photos and have been edited. So that's what that does for me. Now, let's say I want to save this as a style. I can come over here to the drop down, and then I can click on Save New Style. And I'll just title this Raw Edits. You can title this whatever you want, but I'm just going to title it Raw Edits and hit Save. So now every time I want to find the edited photos that are raw images, then I just click that and it'll filter that for me. So that's extremely helpful, especially if I have the question of, well, how many raw edited images do I have on my hard drive? So we did the layout. We talked about the 5-star images. I showed you that. So now let's say I want to find images with just a color tag. If I click on attribute and I click on yellow, for instance, this is going to bring up all of my raw edited images with a yellow tag. And you can see that this is kind of lagging a little bit. Again, this is on a slower hard drive. But what it's doing is it's going through every image on the hard drive, trying to figure out which ones have this yellow tag, and it's going to eventually render them here in front of me. But just know that, you know, this could take a little bit of time if you're on one of those slower hard drives. And that's why I kind of brought that up in the beginning. Cataloging your images will go a little bit faster. So here we are. And I'm not sure why these ones turn green. They don't actually look that way when you put them into the edit module. The thumbnail, the embedded thumbnail, likes to make it green for some reason. Not a big deal for me though. Anyhow, now you can see I've transitioned to 94 images that are raw with this yellow tag on it. So you can see the power of using different attributes and then being able to search for your files later on down the line, especially if you photograph a particular event or a type of event like weddings or birthday parties or something like that. And you could either keyword tag it with that, or maybe all of your delivered items you tag with a green box. So I'll just change that really quickly. We'll see how fast that goes. But if you tag it with a green box, then you can find all of your green tagged, let's say that those are your delivered items or your exported photos, whatever you want to make that green tag to mean. And now I'm looking at green tag raw images that have been edited. That's essentially this search. And again, I can create a actual file. Now, here's what I recommend everyone does. I recommend you create a smart album once you get to a point where your images are, you found a search that brings up the photos that you want, and you're going to constantly mark your images in the same capacity. So I'm going to mark anything that I export with a green tag, and if it's raw and if it is also edited, it will always pop up inside of this smart album. Smart albums are really cool. Let me show you how to create one. So there's two options. You can click this little box right here, and then this brings up the smart album. What it's doing is it's taking all of these search criteria settings and it's converting it into an album. So I'll cancel this so I can show you the second way of creating smart albums, which is by clicking this drop down and then coming to the very bottom and then hitting Save New Smart Album. These are the exact same options, so you don't have to worry about if one is better than the other. This one up here in the toolbar or options bar, it's just faster. That's all it is. So I'm going to label this green tag raw edits. All right. And I'm going to hit save. So now I created a green tag raw edits folder, so to speak. I'm going to hit none here. That's going to reset all of the search criteria that I have built into ON1. And now you're probably like, okay, Chris, so where is that smart album? Because your first thought is going to be to come down here to albums, and you can see it's nowhere in this area. Then your second thought may be, okay, well, let me come to this drop down over here. It's nowhere in this area as well. Smart albums are actually located under the My Catalogs tab. All right. So if you click on My Catalogs and then you come down about, a couple, depending on how many items you have here, you'll come down to the Smart Albums section. It may be collapsed, so you'll have to uncollapse it. But now you can see that I have my green tag raw edits. If I click that, it's going to filter these photos for me. Again, it's just bringing up that search criteria. But here's the beauty of using a smart album versus using just the search. Anytime that I tag an image with this information, it's going to put it into this album. And this particular album is going to have a variety of photos, and I don't have to come up here to this little drop down. And this is an album. So when I start to make edits to the image, I'm actually working in an album. So I'm not deleting anything from the hard drive, if that makes sense. This is a safer space to work in of filtered photos. Now, I've created a few other smart albums here. I personally like to look at how many photos I take at different focal lengths. So I recently started using my 85 f2 lens a lot more often, and I enjoy looking at the photos that I take with this 85 millimeters. Now, what you can see here is these are all photos taken at 85 millimeters, and they're at different lens options. So this one was taken on my D5200 a few years back, and I was using a Nikkor 18-105. All right. And this particular image was just photographed at 85 millimeters. So what I can actually do in here is I can create a smart album that says only put images taken with my Canon RF 85. And then if I only want to see the images that I take with that, then it'll pull that together. So let's actually build that. First, This is the only downside to using that particular option, is you have to find a photo that was taken with the lens of question. So I know that this photo was taken with it, and so it's titled RF85 2M under or space F2. I think that'll be enough. So what I'm going to do is leave this at focal length. I'm going to hit the plus icon, and then I'm going to go to camera, and then I'm going to come to lens, and then I'm going to go with starts with, and then I'm going to type in RF 85 mm. Now, what ON1 is doing is searching through my personal work folder, trying to find the RF 85 mm lens files. And apparently I have 3,753 images that I've taken with that lens. So if I scroll up, these are going to be in order from oldest to newest. So this is when I first got the lens. I was just messing around with it. And if I come all the way down here, I should be at the build conference, or maybe the Corvettes, because I did use this at the build conference. So it's somewhere. I should have some images from the build conference, but you can see all of your images with the 85 millimeter lens. I won't bore you with going through every single one of these images, but once I have that, then what I can do is come up here, click Smart Album, and I will label this 85 millimeter RF, or I'm sorry, RF 85 millimeter, and then just make it images. So now every time that the criteria is met for the RF 85 being used, those images are going to pop into that Smart Album. So if I ever say, hey, you know what, I need to find my RF 85 images, I can just click this album over here. It's going to run these settings. It didn't change because I already had those settings added, but it puts me at the top here, and that's good to go. So Smart Albums are a huge opportunity for cataloging or finding images that you may not know exist, or that meet a certain criteria. So we've been going for about 38 minutes now, and looking at my checklist, I have gone through everything except for one item. So I'm going to go through this one item, and then I'll pause for any questions. So if you got questions, please put them in the comment section. And if you're watching this on the later restream, then put them down in the comments below. However, let's go ahead and clear this out completely. So I'm just going to take all of that out, and I'll be left with just metadata. So one of the things that I get asked often is, how do I find my ON1 files? Because those are important to find, especially if you start working in layer-based things like I showed in previous videos, or if you are doing anything that creates a .onphoto file. There could be other options there. It's important that you find them. So what you're going to do is go to File Type, and then if you click this drop down, OnPhoto will pop up. And then we'll let that kind of render through for a second, and you will hopefully see the end results of all of the OnPhoto files found on my computer. So while it does that, I'm gonna get a sip of coffee because it's early in the morning. And this is one of those benefits to, again, having a catalog folder, but I did want you to see what happens when your items are not cataloged. So here I have 196 on photo files in this particular catalog. Now, someone asked me in the past or in the comment section, do all of the edits from ON1 Photo Raw 2023.5 transfer over into the 2024 version? Well, I'm going to click on this particular photo right here because, you know, it's an on photo file. I'm going to double click it, open this up, and yes, this is a self-portrait. I took it using a wireless transmitter, and I was just messing around, seeing how self-portraits work. And for whatever reason, this particular image is loading in a little bit slower. I don't know why that is, because there's only 2 layers on here, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think I got that crazy with it, and I can't even resize. ON1 doesn't want to play nice with me right now. So this is the first time that I've ever had an image not load in like 1 to 2 seconds, if that. This is interesting. I wonder if that has to do with the hard drive, because this normally doesn't happen. Okay, well, nonetheless, what I wanted to showcase is, yes, all of the edits that you made in previous versions of ON1 are still going to show through. And I think ON1 just froze on me. I think that's what happened. Let me see if it's responding or not. Doesn't say that it's not responding. So, yeah. Guess I just got to let it think itself through. But I won't make you guys wait for that. So, hopefully, I didn't just ramble, and I did share some good information on finding your photos. It's hard for me. There we go. So the photo, it finally rendered through. You can see I put a little bit of effects on. I have the tone enhancer, and that mask is still fully intact, fully editable. Editable? Is that how you say that? I hope it is. If I hit the letter O, you can see everything is still working like a normal image does. For some reason, this just took a little bit longer to open. I don't know if it's because I haven't opened it in a long time. I took this photo back in 2020. I don't know. Look at that younger version of me. Anyhow, we will go ahead and go back to browse, and even going back to browse with its saving seems to be going a little bit slower than it used to. So that's something to kind of pay attention to. But hopefully that does help answer the question of, does ON1 keep all of the edits and transition into other versions and so forth and so on. So you don't have to worry about losing any edits between versions. All right. But hopefully you found some value in the content. If you did, smash the like button. Let me know your questions in the comment section below, because I love to help people learn to navigate the software. And I realize that I can't cover every single scenario of what you may be going through. But if you share what you're going through or specific questions, then I can absolutely point you in the right direction, or at least I think I can. And if not, then I'll reach out to my friends over at ON1 to hopefully get you a clear answer. So until the next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.